tonight is the State of the Union address, where Joe Biden is expected to make his case for re-election in 2024, or, whatever the teleprompter tells him to say. But according to a new Rasmussen reports poll, 56% of adult Americans do not think Joe Biden should seek re-election. So when Rasmussen asked if Biden runs for re-election in 2024, should Kamala Harris still be his vice presidential running mate again? 39% said yes, 48% said no, and 13% said they weren't sure. So let's bring in Rasmussen's reports. Head to pollster Mark Mitchell to break this all down for us. Hey, Mark, what surprised you most about the polling on this issue?
Just looking at all the different questions and coming away thinking that Biden presidency really kind of lowered the bar for everyone, at least on the Democrat side. So keep in mind when we look at 32% of U.S. voters want Biden to run for president again, but only 27% when we've asked before are very confident that he's physically and mentally up to the job of being president. And so just wrap your head around that. And his approval rating today is 44%. So now I often hear, well, why is his approval rating so high? And I don't think that's obviously the only number you look at. There's other questions like, should he run for re-election again in 2024? And only 32% of U.S. likely voters say yes. But among his own party, the numbers are bad really too. Only 53% of Democrats think he should run for president again. So that's not a strong vote of confidence, but I don't know what their alternatives are. Now, looking at Kamala Harris, if you asked me about her 2 years ago, I would have said, well, Biden has all this experience. Kamala Harris has a likability problem. But whatever her strategy's been, whether it's lay low or stay out of the limelight, it seems to be working for her because her favorability numbers are up to about where Biden's are today. And when we asked in another question set, if Biden doesn't run, should she run in 2024? She gets the same 32% of likely voters that Biden does now. And among her own party, she also gets 53%. But that other question we said, if Biden is running, should Kamala Harris stay on the ticket, with 39% of likely voters saying yes? That seems low, but it's a huge step up from 32. But I think the important thing to look at is buried in the numbers. If you look at the crosstabs of people that think Biden should run again, of those people, 79% say that Kamala Harris should be on the ticket. So people perceive her to be a winning team with Biden. And that's really, that's something. So now it is.
That is so surprising. You remember during the during the primaries, she polled at like 6%. She was so unfavorable. And she's had so many botched moments during her vice presidency. And yet she's picked up favorability. That really surprises me.
Well, I'll explore some other numbers that really show that this is all very relativistic. So if you throw 20 candidates into a pool and ask people to pick one, they're going to pick the most prominent one. On the Republican side, that's going to be Trump, right? Everybody else is going to only get 1, 2, 3%, or if you're Liz Cheney, maybe 0, right? But then if you ask on an individualized basis, should this person run, the numbers really kind of even out. And that, to me, is nowhere more clear than looking at Trump and DeSantis numbers. So we asked that same question. Should Trump run in 2024? Should DeSantis run in 2024? Now, keep in mind, Trump built a huge, bipartisan coalition, got more votes than any Republican in history. But only 35% of U.S. likely voters want Trump to run again in 2024, and only 51% of Republicans. So his numbers among his party are even lower than Biden's are, and that's incredible to me. But then I often hear DeSantis talked about as some savior that's going to unify everybody and step in and right all of the mean tweet wrongs. But DeSantis only gets 37%, so he's not doing much better. And I'll tell you what, he hasn't been subjected to nearly the same amount of negative scrutiny. Among Republicans, DeSantis does 2 points better than Trump, 53%. But there's that magic 53% number again that only Biden and Kamala Harris can only get among their own party. So it's a weird situation coming into this presidential cycle where everybody's either exasperated, totally disappointed with their existing candidates, wants somebody to come in. But I can't think of a single human being that I could ask that question of and get over a 40% number. I don't think there's a person on earth. So I think everybody's got to resign themselves to the fact that we're most likely dealing with a pretty known set of candidates at this juncture.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more coverage of candidates than there used to be too, right? We know much more about them, and or there's much more of a spin on them. Politics has gotten even dirty, so that might be part of it. I do want to, before we run out of time, ask you about another poll conducted on Elon Musk and Twitter, someone else who's getting maligned pretty heavily in the press. You asked people a pretty simple question: has Twitter become better or worse since Elon Musk bought it? 37% said better, 26% said worse. 16% said Musk ownership has not made much of a difference, and 20% said they weren't sure. So what do these numbers tell us? One thing I did notice from your crosstabs is more people use Twitter than I thought. I thought it was a pretty small amount of people, but there's a lot of people who, I guess, use Twitter more than I thought.
Well, these Twitter questions are, I think, a great success story. We actually asked questions back in November about Twitter too, not long after the purchase. And sort of some of the headlines are, it seems like more people are using it since then. But when we ask people if Elon has made Twitter better or worse, and you look at people specifically that tell us they use Twitter, his numbers are way better than they were back in November. Back in November, among Twitter users, it was basically split about whether he was going to make it better or worse. And now, if you average it all out, better beats worse by high 40s to about 30%. So that's, a double-digit spread in just a little over a 2-month period. We also asked about do people strongly approve of the Twitter files? And 63% of Americans say they approve of the Twitter files. And it was huge bipartisan support, even 54% of Democrats. So I think people are sort of liking what they see here with this, new free speech Twitter and these new revelations coming out about our government and its role in censorship.
Well, people really want transparency, and I think that's what those numbers reveal kind of across the board. People want to know what they're getting, and they want to see what's happening behind the scenes. And we've gotten to see a little bit more of that, though we hope to see more. So we'll see how Musk's favorability goes along as we get more information, hopefully on the Twitter files. We're still waiting for the Fauci files. Of course, those are the ones I have particular interest in. But Mark Mitchell, as always, your polls are extremely interesting and insightful, and gives us a picture of the country in a unique way, and we always appreciate it.
My pleasure.